And in fact, we didn't predict it, but we are still immersed in this pandemic crisis, and actually probably it's sometimes bracing ourselves for more or for more uncertainty. And there are stresses and demands on all of us that are very real. In some ways, it could be a real fear of getting ill or of endangering someone we love. But I think for most of us, it's fair to say that it's probably a recognition of how much this situation is putting on us in terms of an emotional toll, the uncertainty, the fear. What stood out for us and very striking when we thought about relational change gathering is how this pandemic introduced this term of social distancing as somehow the best preventative measure, you know, in a way to keep us safe, isn't it? But this physical separation has also meant, you know, so much entrenched aloneness for so many, and which in itself is almost an existential threat. As relational being. And I love, for those of you who have been following Dan Siegel over this pandemic, he's a big proponent of saying, let's stop calling it social distancing. Actually, you know, this is a physical distancing that we need to sort of abide by now. But the human being is not used to this kind of aloneness, and we take for granted the ability to be with each other. And we're doing a lot of this virtually, but I guess it doesn't lessen the pain of not seeing, touching, and being with other people. So this pandemic, I guess for all of us, has brought us face to face with living with ourselves, and sometimes even with living with loved ones, when our relational patterns depended so much on outside distraction or other sort of kind of social ties. So this has led us really to think more closely about resilience and sustainability. You know, what is it? How do we view it? How do we support ourselves? How do we support people we love, our clients, our friends? And what really makes a difference? So in reflecting on 2020, which is the theme of this gathering, we wanted also to reflect with you today on the different types of strategy we've been using, or who have been used over the years even, whether it's, if you think of psychology, therapy, well-being, as well as in the organizational world, to support us as human beings and also communities. And we've called these strategies managing, acknowledging, and sustaining. So what we're inviting you today is to look at each one of these resources through a relational lens. Okay. So many of you will be familiar with our relational framework. You know, we called it SOS, self, other, situation. We believe that, you know, a relational orientation actually fundamentally means finding a balance between these three distinct, what we call zones of awareness: the self, the other, and the situation. And it's not a surprise, actually, that self, other, situation spells SOS, which of course is a, you know, international call for help, you know, a kind of a reaching to others in usually quite dire situations. Because fundamentally, as relational beings, being relational is recognizing that we need each other, and we can't live pretending to be self-sufficient individuals, to that maintaining, you know, even our bodies as healthy organisms with social or physical isolation is alone enough for being fulfilled and thriving. So a relational model, in the way we've conceived it, is not just about recognizing our need for connection as human beings, but going even a step further to understand that actually we're shaped by these connections, and not only a connection to the other, to one other human being, but also shaped by the situation that actually we find ourselves in. So, you know, if I'm just thinking of myself now, who I am in this moment here with you, what I feel, how I behave, what I say is fundamentally influenced by these three lenses. So if I stay in the self lens, you know, have I had a good night's sleep? am I anxious or worried about something? Are my children okay? But also influenced by my connection with you. You know, I notice, you know, what's changed in me as I noticed your smiles, you know, and I saw the nods and the familiar faces, even in these little small squares, the relief in seeing familiar faces. And of course, influenced by the situation, you know, the more immediate one, that the fact that we're having it here, this gathering on Zoom, and at a larger level, you know, that the country and the UK is, you know, hopefully in a week or two coming down out of the more strict lockdown that this pandemic has put us in now. And for those Gestalt practitioners, and I know there are many out there today, you'll know that we didn't get to this view of relational by chance. This view, you know, this sense is really informed by Gestalt theory, by notions of phenomenology, which we put here around the self lens, which is about, you know, how we understand the structure of our experience, our reality and that of others, dialogue, you know, how we connect with others, and field theory, of course, the actually fundamental fact that that everything, us and everything else, is fundamentally quite interconnected. So just take a moment to notice, maybe in this time, where is your awareness or focus now? Is it with yourself? Is it with others, me, or others here or in your life? Or is it with the situation around you now, the wider world you are most noticing? You know, it could be all three really, or you could feel more stuck on one for a particular reason. For whatever reason, just notice and be curious. And you'll see that the three change strategies that I mentioned early on that we'll be talking about today to manage resilience emerge from these three different zones of awareness as different actually starting points.